Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about the price of Bitcoin and taking a look at all the macro indicators regarding Bitcoin and also a couple other things as well that I'm going to bring up that I think are relevant and very important right now. So with that being said, let's get it. So as you guys can see, the price of Bitcoin is at 62,400. It peaked out here at 64,000. This thing's really just shot up. I'm starting to wonder if it might end up having a major sell-off because it's looking pretty, I don't want to say blow off top because obviously we're not at the cycle peak, but maybe like a small retracement, but it's hard to say at this point. So I did promise you guys in the previous video when talking about Bitcoin that I was going to bring up the gold, the actual gold, like physical gold that you can buy, ETF, and what the price did for gold once that happened. So let's look at that. So this is the NASDAQ.com. I'm going to leave this link in the description for you guys down below so you can see for yourself. You can try to understand this more, the comparison between gold and Bitcoin, all that jazz. But here's the chart that talks about when the first spot gold ETF was listed on the NASDAQ. As you guys can see here, the Spider or SDPR gold shares, you can see the price down here was in 2004 was roughly about $400 a share, and then it did a massive 5x over the next 8 years, went to almost 2,000. So massive price increase. I think that Bitcoin could do more than a 5x from the 45,000 or so that it was at when the ETFs were approved, but that's just my opinion. There's a reason for why I say that, because there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Okay, there's never going to be 25 million or 30 million. You cannot mine more of them. It's built into the existing supply. It was created from the ground up with a cap on its supply. So there will never ever be any more than 21 million. However, with physical gold, it can be mined continuously from the earth so long as it's in the earth. Okay. And for all we know, there could be actual more physical gold out there in space somewhere, on a planet somewhere out there in the gray beyond. Nobody really knows. Okay. But in terms of Bitcoin has a capped supply. Gold does not, which is why I think that the price of gold the price of Bitcoin after the ETFs could do more than a 5x over the course of 8 years. Okay. Over 4 years, yeah, maybe it does a 5x and tops out. But over 8 years, probably more than a 5x. So I'll be sure to leave this in the description for you guys so you can look at it for yourself. Next thing we're going to look at is the Bitcoin halving here. So Bitcoin halving, we have 52 days approximately. This is roughly about the third week of April that this is going to take place. There are different halving clocks out there on the markets that you guys can look at that probably have different estimates, but this is what the estimate roughly is. It could be a few days earlier, later. It could be a week earlier, later. It kind of just depends. So we'll have to see. But you guys can see that the circulating supply that will be put onto the market will be cut in half by that time. Okay. So very important. Increased demand, decreased supply equals increased price. It's basic laws of supply and demand. So the Litecoin halving, we haven't brought this one up previously, but I want to point this out to you guys. We just had a Litecoin halving in August 2023. Okay. That was last year. That was about 6 months ago. Did it do the price, or did it do a lot to the price of Litecoin? Not really. I bring this up for the sake of ltcn. Okay, we talk about ltcn a lot on this channel. So basically the price of Litecoin, we'll go back and look at this at a later date when we get more into the bull run and we're looking at ltcn skyrocketing in price. Okay, but the price of Litecoin didn't do much of anything after the halving. It went up into the halving for Litecoin, but after the Litecoin halving, it dumped, which is what we showed you guys that basically has happened throughout history. But the reason I bring this up is because once Bitcoin has its halving, both Litecoin and Bitcoin would have had a halving. Okay. And this is extremely bullish for the price of Litecoin and LTCN because, as you guys know, LTCN is an oscillator to Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes up, Litecoin will go up. When Bitcoin goes down, Litecoin goes down. Okay. So it's very bullish for the price of Bitcoin and LTCN. So here is the cryptocurrency market cap on CoinGecko. As you guys can see, the market cap is 2.37 trillion currently. I want to go back and point this out to you guys before we get further into the Bitcoin chart so you guys can have a really solid understanding of just how bullish things are looking right now, but also simultaneously just how early we are in the cycle. Okay, look at the market cap right now. Okay, 2.22 trillion with a T dollars. Well, we'll have to wait and see how this week closes, but this actually may end up turning into a support zone here. So the peak was at almost 2.3 trillion. I need you guys to understand this. Okay, the previous cycle top peak was at $3 trillion. Okay, we're at 2.2 trillion right now. We're less than 33% away from the previous all-time highs on the total crypto market cap. That's including Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the altcoins. Okay, the price of Bitcoin and the price of Ethereum are already getting very close to the previous all-time highs. Bitcoin was 69,000. It's currently at 63,000. Ethereum was at like roughly at 4,500. It's currently at 3,300 or 3,400 almost. So I want you guys to understand just how close we are to an actual bull cycle beginning in terms of pushing past all-time highs on these indicators. So there is that. I wanted to point that out to you guys. So next thing I want to show you guys here is just so you all know, Coinbase had like this issue earlier where they were having, it was like a large influx of volume or something like that, and everybody's account showed zero. We were pretty sure that all of our cryptocurrencies are safe, but we are buying on multiple different exchanges just to be on the safe side to kind of counteract any upcoming issues like this in the future. Because in the crypto bull run coming up, issues like this may occur because of the massive influx of volume from retail. Okay, it could happen. So not financial advice, but it's always wise to have multiple options. Just saying. So we do have our current Bitcoin position. Okay, our average cost right now is about 55,000. As you guys can see, the price is way above that. We're waiting for this to get to roughly 62 to 64,000. We're going to take profit, and then we're going to wait for a drop in the price of Bitcoin. Probably back down somewhere between 50 to 60K. Whether that happens or not, we'll show you guys in a later video. But we're kind of tracking it for positioning going into the halving and into the bull run. Could Bitcoin just go straight up to highs regardless? No pullback? Yeah, it's possible, but I would say the more and more we move up, the more likely it is to pull back. That's just basic trading psychology, trading technicals. Okay, trust me when I tell you guys, it doesn't matter how much something goes up, it will always pull back. Okay, and the inverse is true. So the other thing I want to point out is our Ethereum position. It is in the money right now. Just so y'all know, we do actually have more Ethereum than this. I believe the initial Ethereum that we bought at like $1,500 or something like that. So our cost basis is actually much lower than 3,000. It might be like 2,000, 2,500, something like that. But we're keeping an eye on that too. So that's kind of what's going on with the positioning. So we'll take a look now at the Google trends with crypto. As you guys can see, Bitcoin has gone up, but over the course of the 5-year chart, I mean, guys, when this thing's at 100, everybody and their brother's talking about Bitcoin. When it's down here, nobody's talking about Bitcoin in retail. Okay, that's what this is. This is a retail trader indicator. This indicates when this gives a pretty good idea of when it's a good time to buy, when it's a good time to sell, according to smart money antics. Okay, smart money always loves to sell the top and buy the bottom. They don't buy when everybody else is FOMOing in, and they don't sell when everybody else is panic selling. Okay. So smart money would be buying when this thing's basically down here, probably as low as humanly possible, and they would be selling up here at the top when everybody else is FOMOing in. So as far as this term is concerned, basically nobody is in the crypto space right now except I would say the institutions and maybe a small, very tiny, minute handful of traders or retail investors, very small amount at this point in time, I would say. Otherwise, this indicator would be going off the charts. So Bitcoin, very similar thing. Kind of had this little tick up, but again, not really that big. Okay, it's only at a 23. We hit basically 100 twice back here, and then during the swing high in 2022 or June 2022, we also hit a high, but then of course it dropped back down. So as you can see, there's really not much interest from the public right now in Bitcoin, which is very good. It's very, very good for those of us that are looking to get in early for when eventually they do end up FOMOing in. Okay. So fear and greed, I'll point this out one more time. We're getting extremely greedy at this point. As you guys can see, it's getting kind of ridiculous. We're up here at an 82. That's a good thing for those of us that want to make money, but at some point this thing, in my opinion, will pull back. But of course, Bitcoin could just go to 69K and just say, you know what, screw y'all, we're going to 100K, we don't care. That could happen, okay? Could happen. But the higher up that we get on this thing, the more concerning it becomes, okay? Right now, we're at an 80. As you guys can see, every time we hit anywhere between an 80 and a 90, that was a major top. That's one of the reasons why we're talking about potentially taking profit here pretty quickly on Bitcoin. You guys can see these tops are very, very rare. They almost never happen. Pretty self-explanatory, okay? When it's at the bottom, good time to buy. When it's at the top, good time to sell. So MVRV, we're getting up there, but again, we're clearly not at a cycle peak because as you guys can see, all of the cycle peaks and this thing literally nails the exact top almost on every one of these. As you can see, the MVRV would be way, way up there, okay? In between basically a 7 and a 10. We are nowhere near that. We're basically pretty much at a 2, maybe a little over a 2, so not even fair value. Fair value would be somewhere around 5. Cheap would be 0 to 2, I would say, or 0 to 3 even. And expensive would be somewhere between 7 to 10. So now going over to the Bitcoin rainbow chart, you guys can see we're still not even in the yellow box. Okay, it still says still cheap. So yellow box would be HODL. We're not even at that point yet. Again, we've estimated that we think that the cycle peak is going to be somewhere around October of next year. So if we do the measurement on that, let's just assume we got, because the big boys are in crypto now, the multi-trillion-dollar institutions, we'll just assume we got somewhere in between this medium to dark orange color by October. You'd be looking at somewhere between, I would say on the more generous side, $250,000 to $400,000. On the more conservative side, probably somewhere between $150,000 to $250,000. So, give or take somewhere in that range, $150,000 to $400,000. It's really difficult to say. In a typical cycle without BlackRock and all those guys being in here, I would say it's most likely $140,000 to $250,000. But with them being in the space now, it's a little bit more difficult to predict where that top could be. Now, if Bitcoin breaks past previous all-time highs around the time of the halving, we could only have roughly around about another year of the cycle left. Okay, obviously that's not a guarantee, but I mean, it's hard to say exactly how this could play out. Okay, Bitcoin on the previous cycle. Let's go back and look at the charts. So Bitcoin on the previous cycle, as you guys can see, broke past its previous all-time high in December of 2020 or thereabouts. Okay. So the first peak came roughly about 5 to 6 months later. And then the second peak came almost an entire full year later after Bitcoin broke its previous all-time highs. So if we break the previous all-time highs, let's say next month in March, the cycle peak could be anywhere from February to April of next year. But if we break Bitcoin's all-time highs later this year in December, let's say we do get a massive pullback and then we don't get back up there till December of this year, then the peak could be closer to the end of next year. So we'll have to keep a lookout on that. But keep in mind, if Bitcoin does break previous all-time highs, most likely the peak's going to be in a year from now. So just want you guys to keep that in mind. If we take a look at what the price would be in roughly about a year from now, you guys can see that it would basically be pretty much what we told you guys in the conservative estimate, somewhere between 150 to 200,000 or 250,000. But instead of it being by December of next year, it would be by March of next year. So Nupal, this thing is getting up there. It's getting pretty expensive, but I would say we're definitely not at a top yet. We kind of want to see this thing get as close to euphoria and greed as humanly possible. We didn't see that on the last cycle, obviously. The November peak was mainly the Fed was to blame because they came out and said they were going to raise rates that basically killed the value of Bitcoin because the dollar went up. Okay, so that's not really Bitcoin's fault. That's kind of more the Fed just trying to manage inflation. But we're not really in that super bubble territory yet. We're getting closer, so I'd say a pullback is more imminent, but whether that happens or not remains to be seen. So now with that, there's one more indicator I want to look at with you guys before we get a little bit more heavily into the positioning of this. So this is the Pi Cycle Bitcoin top indicator. As you guys can see, even though we've had this massive squeeze to the upside, there has not been an indication popped up yet. Even if it did pop up, we would have to wait for a weekly close to see that it was actually confirmed. So we have not seen that. And this indicator has never, ever popped up before a Bitcoin halving event. Okay, it's never happened. It always happens afterwards. So there is that. Now we're going to throw on the other EMA. Change this back to a 51. Okay, so pretty much what we're looking for in our positioning is we're planning to get out somewhere between 62.5 to about 64,000 on the weekly time frame. Main reason being is because that's where the previous peaks were, so we are expecting some resistance from the bears. Keep in mind there are going to be some people that are going to want to be taking profit. I want to show you guys this on the daily time frame too, so you can just see just how insane this price movement is. Could it go higher? Absolutely, but I would say the more that we pull back from this thing, the more likely more we move away from the EMAs, the more likely we are to pull back to them at some point. So you can see the red EMAs down here at 47,000. The green EMAs roughly around, or the yellow EMA is roughly around 55,000. So here's the 4-hourly chart. This is kind of what we use to get in and out. So pretty much what we're looking for is we're looking for a pullback for somewhere between, so we plan to get out between 62.5 to 64. We're looking for a pullback between roughly about 50,000 to 60,000 ish to get back in. Okay. That's with the initial capital. And then we plan to DCA down on top of putting the initial money in. So we put the money in between 50 to 60K. The more Bitcoin goes down, the more we buy. Okay. And what we're looking for here is we're looking for a death cross. So if I actually zoom this out a little bit, you guys can, well, there's not really much of a death cross going on here, but I guess we could kind of use this as an example. So basically we'll put our initial investment back in once it gets to the EMAs, and then we'll DCA down. And if this thing gets below the death cross, we get more aggressive with our buys. And then when we get a golden cross, okay, that's when we position ourselves to get ready to sell, because that indicates another massive move to the upside. Okay. And this is kind of just how we rinse and repeat it with the EMA strategy. Is it guaranteed to work? No. Bitcoin could just keep going up to infinity theoretically, but is it going to? Probably not. Just like Nvidia at some point, this thing, or Nvidia and Supermicro, at some point this thing will pull back. It's just a matter of when. So anyways, this is the current Bitcoin analysis that we have for the week for y'all. Hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts down below. What you think is going to happen. Bitcoin going straight to 100 to 200,000, or is it going to pull back? Are we too bullish or too bearish? Let us know. So anyways, we'll see y'all later. Peace.